Picture this. You are sitting in a crowded living room on a Sunday afternoon. The television is blasting at maximum volume. Suddenly, every single person around you leaps off the couch. They are screaming at the top of their lungs. Some are hugging each other. One guy in the corner is actually crying tears of joy. Why? Because a complete stranger, hundreds of miles away, just carried a piece of inflated leather across a white chalk line. And as you sit there, quietly watching this explosion of human emotion, you realize something profound. You feel absolutely nothing. You aren't angry, you aren't happy, you are just deeply, profoundly bored. If you have ever felt this way, you know the exact look people give you when you admit it. They look at you like you just insulted their grandmother. Society tells us that sports are the ultimate universal language. If you don't care, people assume you lack passion. They think you're antisocial. They might even think there is something fundamentally broken in your wiring. But what if I told you that your complete indifference to sports is actually a sign of a highly specific, genetically influenced brain structure?
What if not caring about the big game actually gives you a massive psychological advantage? Stick with me, because the science behind why you hate sports is going to completely change how you see yourself and everyone screaming at that television. To understand why you don't care, we first have to understand why they care so much. Let's go back in time. Way back. For our ancient ancestors, being alone was a literal death sentence. You needed a tribe to hunt, to gather, and to keep the predators away in the dark. Belonging wasn't a weekend hobby. It was the only way you survived to see tomorrow. Today, we don't have saber-toothed tigers hunting us, but our brains are still running on that ancient hardware. We still crave that primal connection. Enter professional sports. They are the ultimate modern tribe, just with better marketing and expensive merchandise. When a diehard fan watches their team, their brain is flooded with a chemical called oxytocin. This is the exact same bonding hormone that a mother feels when holding their newborn baby. Their brain is literally tricking them into believing that a roster of millionaire athletes is their actual, literal family. It sounds crazy, but from a neurological standpoint, it is entirely real to them. But your brain? If you don't care about sports, psychologists say you likely possess a trait called lower tribal instinct. You don't need to wear a matching jersey to feel secure in the world. You are naturally more individualistic. You don't possess that knee-jerk us versus them mentality that dictates so much of human history. In fact, studies show that people who are indifferent to sports are far less likely to harbor automatic hostility toward outside groups. You don't blindly hate the guys in the red shirts just because you happen to live in a city that wears blue shirts. Your identity isn't tied to a geographical location or a corporate sports franchise. You are free from the tribal illusion. Now let's talk about the addiction factor, because this is where things get slightly terrifying. What happens inside a sports fan's brain during a tight game is basically a neurological casino. Every time a quarterback throws a pass or a point guard shoots a three-pointer, the fan's brain gets a tiny, thrilling microdose of dopamine.
It is the exact same chemical pathway activated by pulling the lever on a slot machine. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. Because the outcome of the game is entirely unpredictable, the brain becomes obsessed. It desperately wants to know what happens next. The uncertainty is the drug. It is highly addictive and it keeps them glued to the screen for hours on end. But for you, the non-fan, this slot machine is unplugged. Your dopamine system simply does not fire when you watch vicarious competition. And this isn't just a quirky personality trait. Researchers at the University of Chicago have found that this might be hardwired directly into your DNA. Variations in your dopamine receptor genes can actually predict how much you care about watching other people compete. Your brain doesn't get a chemical reward from watching someone else achieve something. Your complete indifference to whether the local team wins or loses is literally written into your genetic code. You're immune to the sports slot machine. Let's look at how fans talk on a Monday morning at the office. Listen closely to their words.
We played great yesterday. We really needed that win. We're going to the playoffs. Notice the word we. Did they play? Did they sweat? Did they take a hit on the field? No, they sat on a couch and ate nachos. But psychologically, they're engaging in a fascinating phenomenon called basking in reflected glory. Psychologists call it BIRGN for short. Fans attach their personal identity to the achievements of complete strangers to boost their own self-esteem. But watch what happens when the team loses a heartbreaker. Suddenly, the pronoun shifts. They played terrible. They blew the lead. They need to fire the coach. This is called psychological distancing. When the team wins, it's we. When the team loses, it's they. Non-fans rarely do this. If you don't care about sports, your self-concept is far more stable. You don't need a group of strangers to win a game for you to feel like a winner in your own life. Your self-esteem is anchored to your actual reality, your actual achievements, and your actual relationships. It is not outsourced to a stadium. You don't let the unpredictable bouncing of a ball ruin your mood for an entire week.
But wait a minute. Does this mean non-fans are just cold, unfeeling robots? Do they lack empathy? Not at all. It all comes down to a concept called empathy allocation. We all have a finite amount of emotional energy to spend every single day. We can only care deeply about so many things. Sports fans spend a massive chunk of their daily emotional budget on the struggles, injuries, and triumphs of athletes. Non-fans simply take that exact same emotional currency and spend it elsewhere. Research shows that people with low interest in sports often score remarkably high in a psychological trait called openness to experience. They channel their empathy into completely different arenas. They invest deeply in art, music, nature, social causes, or complex intellectual pursuits. They still crave meaning, beauty, and human connection. They just find those things in a brilliant novel, a breathtaking piece of music, or a deep conversation with a friend, rather than staring at a scoreboard. Their brains are seeking the exact same feelings of transcendence and awe. They are just looking in a different direction.
Ultimately, the great divide between the sports fanatic and the sports agnostic comes down to how we search for meaning in a chaotic world. Sports provide a beautifully simple, ready-made narrative. There are clear heroes and villains. There are underdogs and epic comebacks. There is a clock that ticks down to zero, providing a definitive resolution. It is unscripted drama with clear rules. But to the non-fan, this manufactured drama feels entirely arbitrary. They look at the screen and think, why should I care about an outcome I cannot control, played by people I will never meet, in a contest that has absolutely zero impact on my actual life? Instead of building parasocial, one-sided relationships with a sports franchise, non-fans prefer direct engagement. They want to be in the arena of their own lives. They want relationships with actual reciprocity. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi famously studied the concept of flow, those magical moments of pure, uninterrupted focus where time seems to stand still. For a sports fan, flow might happen while watching a tense fourth quarter, but for a non-fan, flow happens by actually doing things: writing, building, coding, hiking, creating. They don't want to watch someone else strive for greatness.
They want to strive for it themselves. So the next time the Super Bowl rolls around or the World Cup completely takes over the office water cooler and you find yourself staring blankly at the wall, take comfort. You aren't missing out on some fundamental human experience. You aren't broken, you aren't boring, and you certainly aren't lacking in passion. Your brain is just calibrated for a different kind of adventure. Your reward systems, your tribal instincts, and your empathy are simply dialed into a different frequency. You don't need a scoreboard to tell you how to feel, and you don't need a team of strangers to tell you who you are. You aren't sitting on the sidelines of life. You are just busy playing a completely different game, one where you are the actual main character. If this breakdown made you feel a little more understood, you will definitely want to check out our next video on why highly introverted people actually possess a hidden neurological superpower. Click the link on screen now and discover why your quiet nature is your greatest asset.